Oh, okay. It's slow on my end. All right, so today we're going to be having a conversation on day-to-day role as a Scrum Master. What does that look like, right? And also talk about a little bit about what are the struggles that we may face or tackle. So that is essentially the conversation that we're going to be having today. And I encourage everyone to speak up, especially if you're a working Scrum Master, right? Let's open up, talk about what does your day-to-day look like? How do you manage those meetings? How do you manage conflicts? How do you manage um, impediments or blockers or risks that may come up in your team, right? How do you manage that within just a whole day? So to start with, let's start talking about what does the day-to-day look like? Who wants to take a shot on that? What does your day-to-day look like as a Scrum Master? I know we have some Scrum Masters in here. Who wants to take it a shot?
I'll go. um, um, I try to raise my hand first. Well, let me do that. Let me
Go
start.
ahead.
Let me start by raising my hand, and then you can call me.
What does your day to day look like, Humphrey?
Okay. Well, my today on a good day, right? Um, it'll be basically. I like to conduct my stand-up stuff, and that's one of the first things we do in the morning. So I go once I go through my stand up, and with the stand up, of course, you're asking team members what they did yesterday, what they plan to do today, um, going through that, and hopefully, we don't have any blockers. If there are those things that we call impediments or things that can be internal, whether like it could be an access issue, a real impediment will be something that is kind of out of their control that they really need my assistance to help out with. That's when I'll log that, and that'll be something I'll be following up on the rest of the day, right? Those are good days. Other times, you're prepping. It can be for one thing or the other. One like if you take time with your retrospectives, you do a little homework there. If it's a review, you do a little prep work there. Um, and then based on what your role is in the organization, you can be either helping out another team or and sometimes your members coming back to you asking for one thing or the other, and yeah, so that's it pretty much. And perhaps if there's any other, that's just outside of any other meetings that you may have. So I'm just thinking of practical ways that a scrum master um, fills up his or her day.
Okay. Who else would like to share? What does their day to day look like? Anyone wants to share? Lois, I see your hand up.
Yeah, fine. I'll go. I won't try. I'll go. Let me just say how my day. My day today looks like. All right. It's not always the same. First of all, that everyone should know. It's not the same thing every day. Everything brings a new um calendar based on the activities of the day and based on the ceremony that I have to facilitate for that day. First thing I do is that I log into my computer, put in my credentials based on the company code and all of that. And because I'm a contractor, I try to log into my timesheets and then I log into my Microsoft Teams and my Outlook, and then Jira, then Confluence. What else do I log into? Yeah, I first of all try to log into all those places first, check my emails first to ensure that if there are any urgent emails that I have to attend to, or some emails that I have to reply to or respond to, I do that immediately. Then I look at my calendar and see what my ceremonies or what are the activities or the meetings that I have to attend for the day. And usually my first meeting is, as you all know, the daily stand-up. So I kind of like prepare before the daily stand-up, making sure that I go through the Jira board to see if those who have already in progress, if there are any blockers in the blocking in the blocked swim lane, the testing lane. I just take a glance before the meeting starts. Then I start my meeting, and then you know what takes place in the daily stand-up, and if there are any things to be spoken or discussed in the parking lot, I ensure that I facilitate that as well. And if there are any issues to be raised or escalated, I take note of that. And then in the intervals of the day, based on how it goes, sometimes in my organization, I assist my release train engineer sometimes. So she has a few tasks that she always hand over to me, like preparing the art sync. The art sync is like on Confluence, where I ensure that everyone, all the teams have put in their information on the art scene before our art scene meeting, which is basically like a daily stand-up too, but for all the teams in the art. And then sometimes I equally follow up on metrics, and then what else do I do for the release train engineer? And then sometimes on days that we have SOS, if she's busy with other meetings or with portfolio management, then I equally assist her with some other Scrum Masters. We're three of us that take turns sometimes to facilitate the Scrums if she's busy. And then what else do I do? Well, just random things, just do assignments, create, try to research more on other activities or retrospective techniques or user story writing, communicate with the PO, follow up on tasks, just randomly. Like I said, it depends on how the day goes. I don't really have a fixed schedule, but what is fixed is my meetings for the day, and every other thing just follows suit based on how the day goes. It's a 9 to 5, so within 8 hours, I see to it that at least I cover something for that day and I learn something for that day. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. That's very insightful, detailed, and descriptive. Thank you for that. I see VJ has his hand up. VJ, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, okay, thank you, B and Humphrey. So I just thought, thanks for sharing that differentiation, Humphrey, between a good day and a bad day. I like it. Actually, as a Scrum Master, if my team doesn't pose any questions regarding the issues and roadblock during the stand-up call, that is the bad day. That's what I see. If everyone tells, okay, it's everything is going smooth, it's a smooth ride, okay, it's not a roller coaster, then I don't believe it. So they have to, if they are coming up with the questions where they struck anything, that is a good day for a Scrum team and even the Scrum Master. That's how I take it. Thank you.
Interesting question. Kind of a follow-up question to that. Why do you feel, or why do you say that a good day is actually when they have blockers or impediments that they're saying this is the issues that we're having? Why to you is that a good day?
See, after handling multiples of Scrum teams, coached many people. So this is what the ideal trend I found out. If everything is goes right, smooth ride, usually it is a good day for a couple of teams. But with respect to the incremental delivery, what we are doing, there is often many things we are unknown.
What
So
did
we are chasing the unknowns, and we don't know what kind of issues we will be end up with in coming days. If team is collaborating well, they can visualize what is going to happen in couple of days. So what as a team we can do in order to get that issues resolved right now, so that other team members can actively focus on those issues, while the development team can focus on developing that incremental delivery. So the more issues team come up with, the smoother delivery will happen in the coming days. That's what I think. And it varies from different teams to team, what kind of domain categories they are working, complexity of features, spikes. So it entirely depends. But based on my experience with couple of software development team, this is what the trend I find. The more issues, that means team is collaborating well and they are reciprocating to the problems. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like to you, if they're communicating issues, that would mean we're able to mitigate them, so there's no problem in delivering what we need to deliver at the end of the sprint. So because they are communicating those dependencies or issues that they're having, that makes them more likely um, to you be a good day.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Nice perspective. I see AK, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what he said. For me, I look at it as an interesting thing in the sense that it depends on how complex the project that those teams are working on, and it depends on how mature those teams are. Because if the teams are quite mature and then they're coming up with too many problems, it means the whole time that they've been growing, they've not actually been growing very well. That's why they're having all these issues. But if it's a young team that's still in the process of maturing and they're having those issues come up time and again, then it's a good thing because then that process of learning the team members and learning their various functionalities and to become a T-shaped team. So that one is a good thing if it's a less mature team. But if it is a mature team that they've been doing the same projects over and over and they're having lots of issues, it means somebody's dropping the ball somewhere. And to the second point, it depends on how complex the project that you're working on is. So I kind of side with him to an extent, but that is how I would present it. And now, also piggybacking on what you said, communication. It means they're talking to each other. They're trying to resolve by being pre-prepared for any scenarios that come up. That is when the testers and stuff try to run simulation of certain projects. I had that in one of my jobs. I was actually on a promos team, which was actually doing more of Kanban and continuous delivery. So there were projects we had to actually create problems by forecasting the project we had to work on to see what kind of mitigations and what kind of path we can use to mitigate that in case we deploy and these promotions are going on and we have to regulate them. So those are the kind of teams and those are the kind of processes that I would buy what he's selling. Thank you.
So, AK, you are throwing in a different perspective, right? Where you feel like if the team are mature, then they shouldn't have a lot of dependencies or issues that they're coming up, because if they're mature, then they should be self-organizing in the sense that they are able to mitigate those issues by themselves, right? Whether it's coordinating or trying to brainstorm on how to be able to resolve that, and not necessarily having to bring it to the team or bring it to the Scrum Master to be able to mitigate. That means you have a good team, they're
Right.
mature, it equals to a good day and equals to less likelihood of calling out dependencies or issues that they're having.
Correct. Because
Interesting.
remember, our goal as Scrum Masters is to make this team become as self-reliant and independent as much as possible, correct? And if they're working on the same projects over and over, then they know the ins and outs of the projects. It's like you're working on an S550 every time. It's the same tires, the same size, the same rims, the same windshield, right? But and then you start having the same issues that you've been doing the same projects for the past 3, 4, 5 years. It's questionable. But if you're moving from say an S550 to a Porsche Cayenne, that's a total different make and model. Then you have questions. Okay, that's reasonable. You haven't done that before. You see what I'm saying? So those are the little analogies I could put in there. So, but I still stand to be corrected.
I think we're about to have a Royal Rumble. VJ, I saw you had your hand up. Do you have a
Yeah,
feedback on that?
yeah. The AK brought one very interesting point about the maturity of the team. So, does the Scrum Master have the control over the maturity of the team? And it's just a 2 weeks of sprint or 3 weeks of sprint. It is very unlikely that that maturity is gonna be um, controlled by a Scrum Master. But Scrum Master, what he has also very limited bandwidth over the other aspect, like a soft aspects of the team. But at the same time, the maturity is not alone the only one influencing factor. There are many other things, but as a Scrum Master, he can more beneficial to the team where he or she can put effort uh, clearing those issues or roadblock. So I see that consolidating or measuring maturity, it will comes with a longer term or long time engagement, like a 3 months or a 6 months time of line. But when the team is developing some certain features in a dynamic environment, focusing on the maturity is becomes a little bit burden for the Scrum Master. That's my thought.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Um,
pretty much. I'm not negating what you said, right? What you actually said was totally correct. I was actually in support of what you said. But now I was bringing the other phase in it, in that if it's a mature team, then it is problematic. But if it's a young team that is still growing, then it's great because it shows that they're learning and they're putting in work, right? Just the same thing you're saying, right? So I'm not denying with you. I'm just giving you an other side of the coin for you to look at from another perspective. And remember, I
Okay.
did mention I worked in an environment that it was a mature team, but we've been doing the same thing over and over. So we had to start creating scenarios to be able to counteract those scenarios in case it happens when we're alive, right? And that is why I gave you the last scenario. If you've been building an S550 for the past, say, 6, 7 months to 4 years, you definitely know the aspects, the windshield size, the tires, the rims, the dashboard, right? Definitely, if your developer starts coming back with so many issues with these cars that they've been building for the past 3 years, it means somebody's dropping the ball somewhere, right? And they've been delivering this product perfectly without a problem. There, it means that your developers are messing up somewhere. But if you switch your developers from building an S550 to say, okay, we're about to start making a G Wagon or Porsche Cayenne, that is a new product. And definitely, though they're an old team, but they're new to that product. So there they can ask more questions because they're not used to the same things that they used to do before. So that is why I brought in maturity and complexity, right? So if the project is not as complex as it's supposed to be, or as it appears to be, and it's something they've been working on, and then they're asking you these same questions, you as a Scrum Master, you have to start pondering like, okay, wait a minute, we've been doing this project for the past 3 years, and it is not as complex as you guys are making it seem. Something is wrong. But if it is a complex project and it's a new team, then when they ask those questions, it's a good thing. So I'm simply just backing your point and giving you guys some other kind of scenarios.
Okay. Thanks, AK. So in agile environment, on a light note, you will be blessed to have a mature team.
Yes, sir. And
so
at times,
that leads me to a follow-up question. As a Scrum Master or just in an agile team, how do you measure the maturity of your team? How do you know your team is mature versus not mature? Anyone can answer this question. how do you measure the maturity of your team? How do you know if your team is mature versus um, not mature when it comes to agile? All right, VJ, I see your hand up. And if your hand is old, please raise it down so then I know which one is new and which one is old. VJ, I think you just raised your hand. You want to go ahead?
Okay. So there is one website called, if you want, I can ping that website name. That's called Agility Health Radar. So it's not about the software or any website. So that particular thing talks about around 54 different criteria where you can measure your team's maturity level. How they are there are 54 key parameters, and you can rate those 54 parameters, either sprint on sprint or quarter on quarter, how they are doing it. So once you have those numbers in place, then you will able to put that spider chart and seeing where how is the team's maturity is coming through. So if you want, I can share that link. So that's how I will come to know where is my team's maturity level as of today, and where I need to focus in order to improve those areas. So that's how I will be able to uh, come or measure those maturities.
Can you add the link to the chat? And also, can you highlight maybe 5 points that shows or that could possibly lead to agile maturity?
Yeah, like team dynamics, team environment, product, agile
What does
process
that
mechanics,
mean? Team dynamic, products.
and agile practices.
Let's break that down a little bit. What does it mean by team dynamic? And how do you use that to measure agile maturity or team's maturity?
Sure, I'll put those comments in the line.
Let's talk about it, right? Let's not just put the link. Let's also have a conversation about it. How does the team dynamic, how do we use that to measure agile maturity?
Okay, sure, we can talk about it. Okay,
I still see the
for
same hand.
example,
But go
okay,
ahead.
for example, under the team dynamics, I have almost 6 parameters like being agile, being moral, teamwork, and sustainable pace, and team working agreement. So these are the parameters where I will be gauging the team with respect to the team dynamics. And with respect to the environment, I talk about team size. Is it a dedicated team? Do we have a continued team? Or how well we are doing with respect to the collection of the data, self-organization, impediment clearance. So these comes as a part of team environment. So this whole thing, maturity itself is I can talk whole one day. So these are just the highlights. If you talk about product, cycle time, product division, how you are using the definition of ready, how you are using the invest effectively, story sizing, story slicing, how much work in progress you are keeping at one time. And with respect to the team agile mechanics, how oftenly your teams are showing up for check-ins, stand-ups, hurdles, and retrospectives, and estimation process, progress trackings, and how they are doing the reviews. And with respect to the agile practices, how well the architecture is defined, timeliness of testing, code reuse, holistic testing, testing automations, continuous integrations, unit testing, and refactoring. So these are some broadly, these are the key areas where I will be rating all the team members. Um, in order to understand the team maturity.
Okay, thank you for that. I see Mary, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just want to add to what Vijay said. There are definitely a lot of things we can use to measure the team's maturity. And one of it is also clarity and performance. I think Vijay mentioned how the team can work together, getting themselves together, but we also want to measure performance. What's the time to market? How well is the team delivering? And not just delivering, how well are they delivering value? What's the value delivered? And like, what's the quality? We also when we talk about clarity, we're also talking about vision and purpose. How well does the team understand the vision and the purpose of the product they're working on? How well do they understand the goals? How well are they planning? I mean, of course, when you start with a team, they'll probably be on a stage where you would know there are so many things that needs to be improved. So, and as you're moving and continuing to work with that team, you always want to test to see if they are where they should be, or at least if they're improving from, where you met them. So these are some of the things that, we can check. Even the roles, sometimes you get to a team, they don't know anything about agile, they're not self-organized. They don't understand how to estimate, how to do anything. So that's where performance comes in. How well are they performing right now? How confident are they to perform the work that they're doing? Then what's the team structure? I have seen teams that, we have team members who are not 100% allocated. I have seen, different kind of teams, and that could also impair because it could impair their delivery. So we want to also check how well they engage, how well I think that is still under self-organized, how well they can resolve issues together, how well they can, their backlog management, that is a product owner because it's also part of the team, he or she's also part of the team. Then what are the technical expertise? There are so many things. And I know this agility helps people too. It can help, if Vijay can send that. But personally, I just use all these things. This is where we were before. Let me use my current environment. I have a very new team. When I started with them, they didn't know anything about Agile. The old team members didn't know anything about Agile. The product owner was a proxy product owner, meaning she didn't have any training as a product owner. She does not even understand what product ownership means. Okay, so we started from actually coaching the team how to estimate what story points mean, how to do all of these things. And then gradually every sprint at the end, we want to check, how well we're doing. Sometimes we will have to pull in stories because they don't understand. Sometimes we have to have scope change because we were not really having 100% good planning, I would say, and not the fault of the team now, but the product owner does not understand the role. There's always a lot of back and forth. But gradually, what I can see, currently is that now they can at least do some things themselves. They understand, why we are working in an agile environment. They understand the concepts, of what we're trying to do. And I see the product owner who does not know anything before, who has never worked with Jira, who does not even understand anything. And I see her adding backlog refinements, and doing just fine, right? So that's an improvement. That's a maturity on the part of the team. The team now is planning. Before, they struggle to plan what they can actually take on because they've never done it before. But right now, they're able to plan what they can take on just by me sharing metrics, calculating capacity, continuing to coach, continuing to, follow up and talking to the team. And these are some of the things that as Scrum Masters, we can use to measure the team maturity. And for me, it's also very important for them to open up, for them to bring up issues, so that we can talk about it, to identify dependencies on risk, to do planning, and be able to think through and, ahead of any risk that could, affect or impact delivery. So it's a lot of things. And I believe for every environment, it could be different. But some points we can look at is what's the culture of the team? What foundation do they have? How well are they doing? What's the performance level? And all of these things can help to measure the team's maturity. Yeah. Yes, I think I can stop like that. Yeah. So that's just what I want to add to what Vijay said.
Thank you for that input. Does anyone have any further question on that specific discussion or topic point?
Victor, I think AK has his hand up.
AK, is that old or new?
It was an old one, but let me just add something to what she said. We shouldn't look at maturity on the team based on just that team. The first thing is she said something at the end very important. Maturity varies from team to teams, right? So you could be in one working environment and you go to another team, or you might be running two different teams at your job site, and you notice that the two teams have different levels of maturity. But now the maturity of a team doesn't only depend on that team, it depends on the culture, the goal, and the vision of the entire company of the project you guys are working on. So you cannot scale something without knowing a start point and an ending point, correct? So now you want to know it's not just about being productive, but what is the end goal? How fast are you supposed to be going, or how far are you supposed to be going? So I want us to put it in mind. It's not complex, it's quite simple. You can just use just the 5 Scrum values and you determine the maturity of your team. That is a lot. This is quite a wide question with a wide variety of answers. So that's just all I'm going to chip in. It is not rocket science, people. Don't overthink it. It is as basic as having a team be able, if you have, say, 8 developers in your team, right? And when you came, these 8 people never came for daily stand up. The fact that you start having 3, 4 people start coming for a daily stand up, that team is getting mature, right? If after 3, 4 months you're getting all 8 members attending that daily stand up every day, that is maturity. Now it just depends the level on how you back it up. So little victories do matters, and always use them. It must not mean that, oh, they must be T-shaped from the day you took them, they were nothing, and now everybody's doing everything perfect. No, remember, you have to be able to celebrate those little victories and use those little changes that might look minute and use them, be it in your interview or at your workplace, to show them that, hey, the team is getting mature bit by bit. There's no point that the team is going to be 100% mature. If not, they wouldn't need us. Right, Vicky?
Vicky, add something?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So to summarize what everybody has said, there's a researcher called Bruce Wayne Tuckman. I'm sure most Scrum Masters here have heard of the Tuckman stages in team development. So, I mean, all what we said is captured in these stages, which are forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So I encourage folks you could just put in a Google search on Bruce Tuckman stages in development, and then you would find a detailed explanation on that. But everybody has actually spoken to. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Any additional question or feedback?
Like glasses.
Thank you. All right. So going back to I guess the day-to-day of a Scrum Master, right? When we do have impediments, how do we deal with it as a Scrum Master? During your day-to-day, how do you deal with impediments that comes up? Come on. I know we have some Scrum Masters in here. Let's
Let me try.
go ahead.
Okay, for impediments that come up, the first thing for me is to bounce it off the team to see the 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 possibility of the team even taking care of it without self-organizing, self-management mantra. Because sometimes you see that things that are impediments may not really be impediments. It's just that maybe someone somewhere has not thought it through. So sometimes you see that there's a team member that has the capacity to even resolve, but he's just stepping back. Maybe he wants to be a superhero, something like that, right? So when that is explored and it cannot be resolved within the Scrum team, um, then there's to take it further to the concerned agile leader within the environment, within the organization, to say, okay, this is what has come to the team, and we need support to remove that impediment on our path, because sometimes these things cause delays that impact negatively on the commitment the team has for the organization or for the delivering of the customer. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. So, if I capture what you said is being able to throw it back to them. I guess that goes back to helping the team become more self-managing, in the sense that yes, they do have impediments and they're making it aware. However, how can they take steps in being able to resolve those impediments themselves? Can
Yeah.
you kind of touch light on how do you throw it back at them? Like, what do you do to throw it back at them in a healthy way, and also to facilitate the process of them learning and cultivating how to resolve their own impediments. However, create that transparency within the meeting that they're calling that out.
Okay. So, for example, a developer can come up and say, oh, he's not able to access a back end, for example, right? So he's waiting for Scrum Master to start talking to the customer organization contact to help resolve that. Maybe there's something he's not doing well. Maybe someone more experienced could support and say, hey, this, that, you may not be figuring this out. And also, prior to that, is to remind them about this superpower of self-managing, to tell them that, yeah, you guys, you have this capacity to resolve, make things happen. So it's not like really like, in quotes, throwing it back at them, but it's trying them to, making them to realize that the team is empowered and people should, by living up the strong values, they could do much more than, can be imagined. Also, further to what I've shared earlier, we have some like an impediment board, so to speak, which is communicated to the stakeholders just to throw it, make it very, very visible, to say, okay, this is where we have challenges, and this is the kind of support that is required from leadership to remove those impediments. Because it bothers at the end of the day, the sprint ends, and somebody is coming with a gun to say, hey, you committed to this. Why are you not doing that? Why didn't I do this? We will not pay, especially when you are an SI to the organization, because it's like, oh, this is what you've committed. We will sign off your papers based on this commitment, something like that. So that's how we approach it.
Okay. And you mentioned about creating And I know you're like, don't pick at me. I'm not picking at you. Just trying to elicit that conversation. And because you made a great point, right? So let's feed on that. You mentioned about creating an impediment backlog. How does that look like? And how do you also bring that or shed light on that? In what meeting? How do you take advantage of the impediment backlog? How does that look like?
Okay, so first we started off before we got Jira. We started off putting that like in an Excel sheet, right? So we shared this across the leadership and the team to say so that it's visible to everybody in case something is missed out. Everybody could see it. Then when we acquired Jira, we created a Kanban board, right? To say, okay, these are these challenges. So as we keep resolving them, we move the cards so that it's visible to everyone actually, and the leaders have access to the board. So most times, as part of I hear something around maturity. So that also goes because here traditionally they want to report Excel. You have to send this PowerPoint. So gradually we migrated people to start viewing the Jira board to say, okay, this is what it is. You go there, you click, you see it, it's visible. People can ask questions. And that review session, because actually do I call it her now? Just a chief product owner in quotes, Uh, that's the person that has the mandate, that does the sponsor of the program, actually has some like a catch-up session to say, okay, what's happening? Because there are so many things running. What's happening? Is there anything I can do? Something like that. We have this catch-up point. It's okay. This is a session where we deal with issues and try to remove blockers.
Okay, so it sounds like doing that help not only provide transparency with everyone and within the team, also helps when it comes to collaborating and ensuring that those impediments are being tracked and also they're being resolved, as well as through the form of collaborating with whom needs to be involved.
Very true.
All right, good point. Does anyone have any other question? Not necessarily to Alberta, but to just in general.
Um, I just I just want to ask something based on this impediments. Is there a difference between impediments and blockers? And if there is,
Blockers seems to be the waterfall way of doing things.
Interesting. I think that's actually an interesting question. Is there a difference between imped? Actually, it should be a three-way question. Is there a difference between impediment, blockers, and dependencies?
yes, and
Yes,
risk.
there is. Yeah.
And risk, maybe we should add risk. Because
Now we're adding to the list.
please, thank you.
Well,
Okay,
all
so
that
four-way
is
streets: impediments, blockers, risk, and dependencies. Are they different or are
Yes,
they
they are.
similar?
Yes,
yes
they
Okay,
are.
and
let's
no.
elaborate. Who wants to
Yes,
go
they
first?
are.
Use the
They're
raise hand
different.
button. Everyone wants to talk. I love it. But let's use
They're
the raise hand
they're
button.
different. I often use blockers for impediments, but when I do use impediment, an impediment is logged. That means we're not. It's usually when I ask in my stand up. I don't ask in my stand up. Do you have any impediments? I ask if you have any blockers. What is in your way? All right, and they spit it out. Whatever is in their way. Then okay, wait. If there's something they can handle or I can direct them, that's not an impediment that I'll log. And when I say I'll log the impediment, that means I go into Jira and say this isn't an impediment, so that it provides a transparency, like the guy said. A dependency is not necessarily an impediment. not at all. A dependency is basically that is well known, especially when it relates to an issue like a story, right? Your dependency is that this story cannot do without another completing or a task, or if the dependency is a personnel, that dependency is that that person has to do a certain task before it happens. That person is that dependency or that issue, like a story, is not itself an impediment. That's called a dependency, right? And in risk is just, it's a label. A risk is a label that you attribute to a story. So the story is at risk if there's at risk of not completing in a sprint. So you just put risk, but a risk cannot be, can't say, it's a label. You label a story that is at risk. So that's how those work out.
Let me frame the question this way, right? Define what those are, right? Define what a dependency, a blocker, impediment, and a risk is. Give an example of the difference between those four categories, and then what are the hierarchy of them? Do they have a hierarchy or anything that would pose them or make them to be in that category? So kind of three ways, right? Define it, give an example to demonstrate the difference, right? Because I want us to have clarity and transparency, right? Define it, give an example, right, that shows the differentiation. And then is there a hierarchy of all four categories? All right, who wants to take a shot? I think Mary and AK was talking. Do you guys want to go or?
We will come after you.
I think AK can go. AK, please go.
My mama taught me well, ladies before gentlemen.
Oh my God.
All right, this is okay. All right, I'm not going to give you a textbook definition of these words. So we mentioned what? Risk, dependencies, blockers, and
Impediments.
impediments. So the first thing I'm going to say to the answer of that question is it could be a yes and it could be a no, depending on how those things function, right? So what was the first one? A blocker. It depends on the situation. Simple. If you don't grant me access in Jira, that could be a blocker, right? As a Scrum Master, correct? And if we have to start that sprint and I still don't have access, it becomes an impediment. And if it keeps going and nobody's willing to grant me the right access to be on Jira and Jira Align, and I can't do my job correctly, it becomes an impediment. And if management can't solve that impediment, it becomes a risk because the Scrum team can't function. So pretty much it can graduate from one instant to another, depending on how serious the issue is and how we mitigate it. Does that make sense?
And then where does the dependency come in place?
Okay, a dependency could be in the sense that if the admin has to grant me access and he is not in part of my team and we have to reach out to some other team who are actually in charge of that, I'm depending on him to grant me access for me to run my team. That is a dependency right there. And if he still can't do it, it becomes an impediment. And if it keeps going and this is not resolved, it becomes a risk because it's going to pull the whole product back and the whole team back. So pretty much
send me an address. I need to send you a bottle.
So it seems to be complex, but it's just semantics. And if you just can keep a cool head, you can play. It's just semantics. You just need to know how to use the right word at the right stage and how to break it down. But Humphrey, you did a great job because you were trying to what's the word? to tunnel vision it, to direct the question or the answers where you want it to go to, not where her question was. That was quite smart. That's a good technique that Humphrey did. So Victoria asked the question in a certain way. He took it and gave the answer the way he wants that questions to be addressed. My man.
Do that on the interview, because then I had to bring you back, redirect you to what the question
Exactly.
is.
So you see, he's
So you can
redirecting
get
you.
away with it with on an interview now, but not with a real agile coach.
Yeah, you redirected him back. So yeah, that was a smart
But for
move.
real,
Humphrey. That was a
the way
smart move.
AK sorry. For real, the way AK has answered it, if I have to go for an interview, to be honest, for those who are taking interviews, if you answer the way AK has answered it, I'm telling you, the people will look at you and give you a high five, because he has broken it down in like the easiest to the layman's way of understanding it. You know, because only me listening to him, the way he was breaking it down to the extent where we got to the dependency and considering the Jira admin as someone that you're dependent on to give you permission or grant you access to be able to start, you know, tracking and monitoring your Jira board. It's, for me, it was a very good answer. And that's why I said, AK, your address for a bottle of wine, for real.
All right, thank you for that. Mary, I think you wanted to add something to that.
Yes, and I don't know. I think AK already said everything though. But I know that Scrum Masters use these words interchangeably, and sometimes it can mean different things in different environment. I think the reason I also asked was when we talk about helping the team to be self-organized, there are actually some impediments that we need to help the team to remove, as much as there are some impediments that the team would have to remove themselves. So personally, like offer, I treat that as blockers. You know, the team, they are blocked. And sometimes it's technical, it's something someone else on the team can help with. And blockers are anything that just stop them from working. They can't move on, they can't do anything. Why impediments could be something that slows down the work, you know. So it's slowing us down, it's dragging us back. We're not having progress. And that could be something we have to work around. It could be the same way with blockers too. But the difference is that sometimes blockers could be something the developers or the team can actually resolve themselves. And the Scrum Master can only guide them by asking, you know, powerful questions, and also maybe facilitating that conversation and saying, what can we do? What can help? What do you think can happen? And then they would definitely come up with a solution. And why impediment is something the team can also do, but sometimes a Scrum Master can help. A dependency is simple. It's dependence. We cannot start this story unless this is done. And this is actually something that needs to be defined at your refinement meetings or at your sprint planning before you go into the sprint. So the way I like to explain dependency is you have a birthday party and then you need to print out an invitation card for people with the venue. The first thing you need to know is, you know, find out where the venue is and get the dates from the people, you know, that owns the venue. If you don't do that, you cannot send out the invitation card with the venue. So that invitation card is actually dependent on you getting your venue. And that could come in different ways. We have interdependency, intra, you know, interna. It could be from anywhere, but that's what dependencies are. And risk, well, risk could be blockers too. But risk is sometimes something that could actually affect delivery, and it could come in different ways. Honestly, it's not like one way definition. Risk could be as simple as two team members are leaving next week. We need to re-strategize. That's a risk to the product, to the plan that we had before. You know, it could be any of those things that AK said. It could be anything, but it's a risk. And that's a whole topic on its own, because there are different types of risks too, right? You know, and there are different levels of risk. Some are identified, some are not, some are resolved, some are owned. You want to know when you have proper planning. So that's what I have to add. Those four words could sometimes be different, but I think blockers and impediments work hand in hand. But Scrum Masters are actually impediments remover. Maybe not all, but we facilitate the conversation and we also help guide the team if at all we are not the ones and that depends on the impediment. Sometimes, you know, it's just something the team can work on. So that's just what I want to add.
Thank you for that. Someone called my name.
Yes, ma'am. Can I stat another part 3 of this war? She used the word remove impediments. I know. I guess you know where I'm going with this. So, and your initial question was how do
This
you remove...
meeting wouldn't be you if I don't expect that.
No, because she used an interesting word. It was something I was about to say, but I want to trade first to the entire team, right? And see how we work with it. So it's like kind of a follow-up question. So you as a Scrum Master, do you remove impediments? Or do you remove a blocker? Or do you remove risk? Or do you remove, what's the other word?
Dependency.
Dependency. Yeah.
And I'm assuming, is that a question directed to Mary or is that a general question for anyone to answer?
For everybody.
Okay. I see Felix has his hand up. Felix?
All right. So Scrum Masters facilitate, you assist the team facilitate the removal of impediment. You don't remove impediment.
My man.
Assist the team with the facilitation of the removal.
So when we say facilitate the process of removal of dependencies, blockers, impediments, risk, well, not risk, explain what that looked like. How does that look like?
Kind of
All right.
like who...
Okay. Lois, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just trying to say that kind of like try to reach out to who is, for example, in my case, who do I need to see? Who do I need to contact? Who do I need to email? Who do I need to reach out to get this result or to get this blocker out of the way or to get this impediment out of the way, or like go through the, let's say, the team leader, reach out to the team leader. Who do you think we can reach out to? Just based on the impediment or based on the blocker, it would depend on how it is. If it's something that it has to be something that the team has to escalate to the risk to engineer level, or is it something that at the team level, the team can resolve by themselves? And I just need to kind of like facilitate to see that, okay, let's say, for example, if the PO is involved or there's a tech leader is involved or one of the initiative owners is involved, how can I kind of like check all their calendars to make sure that they get into a meeting, schedule like a meeting to have that resolved. Maybe it's only through a meeting that can get resolved. So that's me facilitating the communication and facilitating the removal, basically. But I'm not the one removing it. I'm just facilitating that meeting or facilitating to aid that those three people come together and have that, impediment sorted out or removed. And I just wanted to also add that based on the organization, this term impediment and blockers is different. Like, for example, in my organization, I'll be honest, we hardly say impediments. Most of the time here, everybody's saying blockers. It's even one of the swim lanes in the Jira board is a blocker. So I did, that's when I came to the environment, I realized that they mostly talk about blockers and dependencies. You hardly hear impediments, but indirectly the blockers are impediments that they're talking about. So it all differs. Just thought I should throw that out there.
Hello, Vicky.
And
Hello, Vicky.
I can hear you. Hello.
Yeah. Just to add, I think in professional Scrum, right? I don't see the word blocker. What we read about the Scrum Master, one of the stances of the Scrum Master is being an impediment remover. Just to throw that in there, because while the community and our different workplaces may vary, because when you say blocker, it's like people's antennas just tune in. Phew, blocker, yeah. What's it? You've actually triggered something in them. But in professional Scrum, I think the word impediment remover is part of those stances of a Scrum Master. He may not, what's it called, be the one doing the actual removal. He may not. However, he could facilitate. In some cases, he may actually be the one removing it, because engaging leadership to do something, do you expect the developer that has his hours, actually that he should be doing something, to leave that and be attending to the customer organization to remove, maybe talk about, for example, I don't have access to, my Jira access is blocked. I don't have access to GitHub, or, sometimes corporates have the way they manage some of these things. Oh, the pipeline, they don't have this one, that one, you know. The Scrum Master can actually have that engagement and try to take care of those impediments, and not necessarily the developer who is actually spending time reviewing his code or making sure his deliverables are met or his commitments are met now. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, it sounds like you're pointing out that one, in different environment, right? Different words can be used, whether it's blockers or whether it's impediments. And also there are impediments that the Scrum Master do have to go about in resolving them, because the developer, it might not be in their scope to be able to do that. And you made an example of how it may be having to speak with business or leadership in regards to maybe whatever feature or work that the team has committed to, right? The developers won't be the ones to set time aside to discuss those features or those workload with business, right? It will be up to either the Scrum Master or the PO to organize that and have that conversation with leadership, and then maybe bring the feedback and information back to the team and let the team know what came of it, and then of course go from there. Did I capture that? Or
Positive.
okay.
Thank you, Vicky. Yeah.
All right. So Felix, I see your hand up, and Mary, I'm not sure if you also had something you wanted to add to that.
I just wanted to add something. Alberto, you said I don't think I kind of disagree with you saying your example means a Scrum Master is removing an impediment. Okay, so let's say, as you like rightly said, a developer has issues. They can't access GitLab, right? And they come to you, oh Felix, since morning I've not been able to access GitLab. What do you do? I mean, you know, sometimes you've been working in the organization for some time. You know the right folks to talk to, right? Oh, okay, developer one. Have you spoken to Ryan? I know Ryan is the guy who assists people with such issues. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Let me reach out to Ryan. You kind of directed him on who to go to, right? And then he reached out to Ryan, because one of the goal is to make them self-managing. He reaches out to Ryan. Ryan is not answering. He comes back to you. You tell him, okay, you go about your business. I will deal with this issue. I will try and reach Ryan. I'll find ways to get to Ryan so Ryan could give you access, right? And then you reach out to Ryan. You use all whatever means you have to. You get through to Ryan, and Ryan does that. You didn't remove it. You facilitated the removal of that issue.
My man.
Actually, it is Ryan who removed it, who actually sought the issue out. So you are the middleman. I always see like you are the middleman, facilitating, getting sure, ensuring that things are done. Things, anything that is impeding your teammates from getting their work, you ensuring that all those stuff is getting rid of. So you, that's why they said the Scrum Master is a facilitator. You can. It's not only about coming to meetings and running meetings, but when you're connecting folks together, you're facilitating those kind of. Those are all facilitation skills. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
My
All
man.
right.
I have dropped a link,
Okay, Felix.
sorry, on the chat box. I think that will take care of it. You may do well to look at it. That's my reference. Professional Scrum.
Yeah.
All right,
Um,
to kind of piggyback on I think definitely you guys are making great points and great perspective. Just to highlight a little bit on the point Alberto is making as well, in the sense that there are impediments that Scrum Master do have to go ahead and resolve themselves, right? It's not everything you have those questionings or telling them, okay, have you done this, or can you go do this? There are situations where you do have to take lead in helping the team resolve that, and specifically when it deals with stakeholders and on a business or program level, right? For example, during sprint planning, one of my team member mentioned about a story, right? That they needed either they needed clarity, right? That can also be an impediment. We can't really work on this because there are not much clarity. You're not going to tell the team, oh, go talk to the stakeholder and get clarity on that, right? Then you have to take that on to either meet with the PO, and then you guys organize some kind of meeting to speak to the stakeholders, or assign it to the PO to discuss that with the stakeholder. So that's something that you help them resolve, that doesn't necessarily have to deal with the developers having to go speak to stakeholders to be able to resolve that impediment. Also, another thing is that the organization may not have access to whatever login process, I'm trying not to be specific, login process or system that they're using. That's more of an organizational or program impediment, or blockers rather, right? That's something as a Scrum Master, you need to be able to speak to whomever in the organization or on the program level who can be able to meet those needs, right? You're not going to tell the developer, oh, go meet the CEO to give us the organization permission, access for that specific system, right? So those are some examples relating to what Alberto may be saying, that there are impediments that you as a Scrum Master, you do have to be able to support in that effect, because that's also how you put value to the team, right? You're showing that you're not just a secretary or a meeting facilitator, right? You're also able to help them in other realm, right? They focus in other realm, but that doesn't mean you resolve all the impediments on their own or the blockers on your own, right? You just need to filter which one can they do on their own and which one would require you to be able to take lead on. The same thing with action items too. Action items should be dedicated to the developers. However, there are some action items as a Scrum Master you do have to take ownership of and be able to see it through during that sprint. I think Mary wanted to say something, and then I see AK's hand up. Mary?
Yes, please. Well, I think the word here is just English term. A Scrum Master is an impediment remover. That's something you're gonna hear like almost everywhere. And according to the Scrum Guide causes the removal of impediments. Yes, and you already explained all that. But apart from facilitating the conversation, the Scrum Master also tries and makes sure to track, and follow up on these impediments. And that's how you cause the removal of this impediment. So sometimes, okay, say somebody's on your team has been assigned or says, okay, I can go talk to, you need to follow up. Did you talk to this person? Were you able to, get it resolved? Those are the things you do as a Scrum Master. So yes, I think technically you remove impediment. You might not be the one, even though there are still some that you will, but technically you causing the removal of impediments, tracking and also helping to even identify what do we call it? Impediments. So as Scrum, I think one of the skill sets that is expected of a Scrum Master is to be an impediment remover. That's part of the skill set that is required. Whether you're doing it yourself, whether you're helping the team to do it, you are doing it technically. And I think also we are there to support the team to help them concentrate on working. So if there are things that is gonna, delay them, that's where, a Scrum Master come in. And I don't know whether that means you're a secretary or not, but I know you also want to make impact because that actually enhances the team. It helps them to actually improve and get better. And of course, it doesn't mean that they're going to look up to you every time to remove their impediments. But it's also something that a Scrum Master will do, should do.
Vicky.
That's mine.
Vicky. So if you look at that link, okay, it says one of the stances is impediment removal, solving blocking issues to the team's progress, taking into account the self-organizing capabilities of the development team.
Yeah.
Very important.
Mhm.
And it resonates with what we are saying.
All right, and I think AK has his hand up. AK, go ahead.
I think Humphrey had a hand up before me. I don't know if
Oh, he did?
before I do. Yeah, Humphrey.
I did, and every time I was trying to wanted to say something, Victoria keeps stealing my answers. What I wanted to say, almost like EMT, it happened like 3 times. When the thing I wanted to say, Victoria is saying. So then I have to lower my hand back down. So that's what's happening.
Blame it on me. It's all okay.
I guess you guys are in sync. Huh.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm sorry for bringing this up. Right. It kind of fired everybody up, right, Vicky? What you guys are saying is not actually wrong. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I've been in that situation before and I've been asked that. Sorry, I didn't catch the last speaker's name, the guy. So pretty much, yeah, in reference to what the Scrum Guide says and all that, yes, it is correct. And I want to take a very good example of what Vicky gave, right? Vicky, yes, the developers will not go talk to stakeholders, right? You, the Scrum Master, will talk to the stakeholders, right? When you talk to the stakeholders, you're bringing a feedback. Whatever they say, you're just transmitting it, right? Hello? Anybody hearing me?
Yes.
Yes,
So let me use Vicky's example. There's an issue that the team members or the developers can't get access to stakeholders. So you, the Scrum Master, you go, you talk to them, you get a feedback, and you bring it back to them. Technically, you did not solve the problem. You facilitate it. So yes, the Scrum Guide says remove. As a Scrum Master, you don't have a technical skill to remove an impediment or solve a situation. You facilitate it or you mitigate it. Because if you get asked this question at an interview and you say, oh, the Scrum Guide says, and they ask you, so how did you remove this? You mitigated it. You facilitated it. You did not remove it. You did not say crack a code or say, okay, I'm going to type this code. This is a live scenario I'm giving you guys. I know what the Scrum Guide says. I know what all those links says. But what betide you if you meet somebody who's talking to you and because he wants to give you that big bucks, he's going to drill you, right? So I'm not saying what you guys are saying is wrong, but that is an experience I got. And using the word mitigation and assisting was way favorable than you as a Scrum Master removing impediment. It's a suggestion. I am not saying what you guys are saying is wrong, and I'm not saying what I'm saying is right. It is just a suggestion. That is why I brought up back this question, and you see how all the ideas were flowing from one side to another, right? It just depends how you back it up. And now it's going to depend on what kind of follow-up question they're going to have for you, right? So that is what I just wanted to drop out there. Right. I appreciate everybody's contribution.
Provide a bit clarity, right? When we started the discussion, we mentioned that this is not necessarily interview prep, right?
Correct.
Focusing on Scrum Master, your job, your role in real life, not necessarily being mindful of interview prep. And also another point too to make clarity on is that not all impediments or blockers are technical, right?
Correct.
So there are impediments and blockers, like such as the examples that I've made, that are not technical. That you, as a Scrum Master, you do have to take ownership of them and drive that to see that it does go through. And the reason why I'm also repeating this is that reality. Don't just be in meetings expecting your developers to be the one to resolve all the impediments. As a Scrum Master, that is part of your expectation to either drive, coach, or help in removing impediments or blockers. And also, if we're picking back on interviews, right? When they ask that question, it's also important to let them know that there are impediments that you do help in removing yourself, and then there are most impediments that you coach your team in resolving, because they do know reality and they don't just want book, right? They do know what reality is, and they are looking for someone who's either going to drive the removal of impediments or support in the removal of impediments, because they do know that not all impediments that the team has ownership to. And also, as a Scrum Master, that's how you provide value to the organization and to the team. So they are looking at your maturity as a Scrum Master, because those are things that tells that you're a true Scrum Master, and you do have those abilities and skills to be able to lead effectively, right? So please be mindful of that. And I think Mary has her hand up. And Humphrey, I think you also have, I don't know if that's new or old, but I know you have your hand up. So who wants to go first? And we have 3 more
Let,
minutes and we're
let me
wrapping.
piggyback to that, right? I wasn't saying it just based, if I brought the interview part, I wasn't just saying based on that, right? That's why I used your Victoria, that's why I used your example, right? Even if you take this issue to stakeholders, remember, you use two keywords. You are facilitating and you are assisting. You are not removing, because if you take an issue to stakeholders, they tell you what they want, you're bringing it back. So what you did there, you did not resolve that situation and you did not remove that impediment. You simply mitigated or assisted by facilitating, taking it to stakeholders, bringing the resolve back to the team. So it doesn't have to be technical. That is all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be technical, right? So I'm just trying for us to get to that establishment that, yes, it says Scrum Masters remove impediment, but all of us who Scrum Masters, those of us who've been working, do you actually remove an impediment, or do you assist? Or do you mitigate it by taking it to the right people, by following through, by doing a follow-up? That is what you do. You follow up, you direct it to the right, you give propositions, you do not remove. So what I'm saying is, it's a better way to say you assist in removing impediments, you mitigate, you direct, you coach, just like Vicky said, everything you said. So those are my 2 cents on that. And I stand to be corrected.
All right, I know we are almost at time, and I do want to respect our time box. Mary, I think you had your hand up, and Humphrey, and then we can close.
I think that's an old end. Let me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Humphrey. Before you say I stole your idea, do you have any any comments? Humphrey, are you there?
You guys are in total sync now, so his voice is coming out pretty well. So he can't talk.
All righty. Does anyone have any final feedback, comments before we end today's meeting? And
I have a
actually, I had a question I wanted to ask, but let's move on.
I have a
Go
based on the discussion we are having, it's all semantics. That's what it is.
ahead.
I just wanted to say that. Vicky, I know we are at time, but somebody put up a question in the WhatsApp group chat. I don't know if you want to talk more about it, but maybe we could put it to the next session. I don't know.
What is the question? Do you
All
remember?
right, it was put up by Rudolph, and he said, give a situation where agile will not work.
Okay. I think that question should be posed maybe for next session, maybe
Okay.
interview prep, because that seemed like a more elaborative discussion on its own. Can we put that in a parking lot and post that for next Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Any last question, feedback, or comments on today's discussion? And thank you for those who did participate, and for those who did not. I encourage you to come on, give it a shot. Let's keep the discussion flowing and keep the discussion rolling. That's how you learn. That's how you inspect and adapt. But any last comments, feedback? Silence. They said silent is the master key. So I would take that. For those who are rejoining us, thank you all for joining. And for those who are new, we do have a platform that you can join us on Telegram. So please do not hesitate to join us. And also come again. We meet every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. EST time zone. So that is pretty much it. Thank you guys. I will see you guys next Wednesday.
Thanks, Grace.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Good night.
Thanks, fellas. Yeah, have a